Hi, everyone. My name is Chantal Roy, Director of Membership Services at St. Joseph Media. Thank you for joining us today as we officially kick off TL Insider's exciting Future of the Restaurant Industry Summit in partnership with Uber Eats, with the opening keynote presentation, The Innovation of Now. In the keynote event, Uber Eats' Director of Product for Merchants, Therese Lim, will discuss the shift to digital hospitality and share innovative products and features that Uber Eats has rolled out over the past year to help keep kitchens open across the country. Some quick housekeeping notes. Please make sure to ask any questions or leave any comments in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll open up an audience Q&A after the keynote. Now I'd like to introduce our guest, Therese Lim. Thank you so kindly for being here today, and thank you, everyone. Now take it away, Therese. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Chantal, for having me. I am so excited to be here and speak to everyone in the audience about a topic I'm personally incredibly passionate about, which is the intersection of food innovation, and digital technology. It's what I do every day, and I'm so glad to be able to share this with everyone today. And hopefully we can all get a little bit of inspiration to help keep our restaurants going, restaurants we all love and support in our local communities. So I just wanted to start with a little bit of an introduction of myself. My sort of title says Director of Product for Merchants at Uber Eats, which is essentially just a very honestly long-winded way of saying that I get to wake up every day and use technology to solve problems on behalf of our merchants, which the vast majority of which are our restaurants. We have hundreds of thousands of them on the platform across hundreds of cities around the world. And we are, the folks in charge of making sure that they have a great experience on our platform. They're able to onboard easily, that they're able to essentially become successful on our platform as well. I live in New York, which is an incredible mecca for the restaurant industry, but I've also been lucky enough to visit Canada several times over the years, and always with a very strong culinary agenda in mind. I've eaten some great restaurants there, and I'm just so thrilled to be, speaking to all of you today. All right, 1 second here. So what I want to do is just get started and talk about Uber Eats as a platform, and maybe introduce what we do to everyone, to just give some context. Fun fact, not a lot of people I think know this by now, but Uber Eats is actually quite Canadian in origin. So in December 2015, Uber Eats launched its first market globally in Toronto with about 100 or so restaurants. I don't know if anyone in the audience was an early adopter of Uber Eats, but if you are, you'll remember back in the day, we actually had Uber Eats as a product inside the Uber Rides app. And so you could easily toggle between getting a ride and also grabbing some food. At that time, we've indexed on speed. There wasn't a ton of dishes to select from, but you always got your order in 10 minutes or less. But what we really realized is that the heart and soul of any food delivery service or any food business in general is our restaurants and the selection and diversity of dishes that they provide. And so we pivoted, and Uber Eats is what it is today. In Canada, it's available in 9 out of 10 provinces, supporting over 17,000 independent restaurants of small, medium-sized businesses, as well as just larger enterprise brands in over 140 municipalities. Some of the more interesting trends we've been seeing as well in Canada is, for example, a very drastic increase in virtual restaurants year over year, about 77% increase in virtual restaurants on our platform. Now, for those of you who may not know what virtual restaurants are, essentially they're just restaurants that are digital first and only have a digital storefront. These are restaurants that have no brick and mortar property or site that they serve food out of. They list entirely on either their own websites or more often across delivery marketplaces like Uber Eats. And they're unique in many respects in the trend that even many brick and mortar restaurants are taking advantage of, because it allows them to do a couple of things, right? One is it allows them to be far more efficient and experimental in their workflow and their operations in spaces to serve a digital first customer, to serve a delivery first customer. And the second thing is that they've also led the charge in a lot of menu innovation in this space. So being able to understand which ingredients travel well, which types of packaging within the foods that they're trying to serve are the ones that really preserve the food quality even while in delivery transit. And so we're really excited to be able to support more and more virtual restaurants coming onto the platform. And finally, we as Uber Eats care deeply about the three sides of the marketplace. We treat all of them as our customers, whether they are the end consumers who are consuming food that is delivered to them, but also merchants and restaurants who are trying to make a living off the platform, and as well as delivery people who are really the engine that make delivery work, food delivery work, especially nowadays. And so seeing a 160% increase in delivery people in Canada working on Uber Eats, earning on Uber Eats over the past year is something we're incredibly proud of, because we want to make sure to continue to provide these earnings opportunities, even in especially in such critical times that we live in right now. And so just to begin, I wanted to talk a little bit about some fun stuff. We looked at some of our data and specifically tried to think and show some of the data that we've seen about the eating habits of Canadians, well, especially on quarantine over the past several months. And so some just fun things to get us started, things that I was certainly very interested to know about. The first one is that we have seen a lot of, I guess we could call picky eaters in Alberta. These are folks who tend to add the most special instructions to their orders when they're, ordering food. And the most laid back are, I suppose, people from Nova Scotia who tend not to add a ton of special instructions and will take the food as is. Quebec and Manitoba are the most polite because they, constantly add please and thank you the most in their special instructions. But I will say that Canadians overall are still much more polite than Americans, your neighbors to the south over here, because over 50% of special instructions always include these phrases compared to just 40% in the United States. And during quarantine, with all that's been happening, all the stress relief that we really needed, while stuck in our apartments and our homes, we've seen things like requests for extra sauce and cheese and onions increase the most, while things that are probably more self-regulating, like dressing on the side or sauce on the side, have decreased, which I thought was a really fun sort of tidbit, but also something that really reflects the times we live in today in food. And then finally, Canadians tend to order a lot of extra sauce, extra spicy, and extra pickle together with their dishes. And I don't necessarily know what these dishes are, but I know that whatever they are, with extra sauce, extra spice, and extra pickles, must be incredibly amazing. So what I'm really here to talk about is how delivery is and has become the new normal. I think over the past year, we've certainly all seen our share of changes, but within the food industry in particular, delivery has really become the lifeline of the vast majority of restaurants across the world. And so, for example, just sharing some data from Technomic, a company that surveyed over 400 restaurants in both the US and Canada in the middle of last year, what we've really seen is that more than 3/4 of operators have indicated, these are restaurant operators, they've indicated that third-party delivery has been crucial to them during the pandemic. And 92% of them have actually reported that they've used, a delivery platform. So after March 15, 2020, which is when most of the lockdowns in North America came into place. And this was 27 percentage points, much higher than before the crisis. We're really, I think, in a position of privilege to be able to help restaurant owners reach new customers. 84% of operators have indicated that, as well as honestly just keep their sales going, in many cases even increase their sales during the crisis, sometimes by up to 40%. We've seen delivery as a trend for food accelerate in the past few years, mostly as a convenience factor for a lot of end consumers. But I think over the past year, it's just really skyrocketed and become in a lot of ways more than just for convenience, right? It's become essential, especially for folks, for example, who are immunocompromised and not really able to interact with the physical world as often or as regularly as they would even like. We've been seeing restaurant owners and operators really respond to the pandemic by really leaning on third-party delivery. And again, we've seen the number of delivery people just increase in response to the earnings opportunities there as well. And we don't necessarily think that even after hopefully the pandemic ends very soon with all the vaccinations coming out, that we will ever revert back to the previous normal. I think these are ingrained habits and ingrained behaviors already and across all sides of the marketplace. And we look forward to helping partner with our restaurants specifically to be able to continue that and be able to serve customers in a better way than ever before. So given that I work in product management and I work every day with engineers and designers and data scientists and so on to create the right types of solutions, whether technological or otherwise, I wanted to talk a little bit about our experience creating product as the pandemic started. What you see on the right is an actual screenshot of my email inbox. It is a screenshot of just a single day, and it's just a single sort of screen. You can scroll, ideally be able to scroll through more and more emails on the same day. But essentially, the whole company was catalyzed by the realization that very, very quickly restaurants were going to have to depend on takeout and on delivery as their way of keeping going during this time, especially when all the lockdowns started and were very abruptly put into place because of the pandemic. And so what was really important to us at Uber Eats, especially on the product team, was essentially just one question, which is how can we help? And so, one of the things I'm incredibly proud of, and probably the proudest moment I've had working at this company was the response. Everybody across the company, it didn't really matter what team you worked on, what function you worked on, everybody dropped everything and pitched in to make everything happen, make new features happen, new operational processes happen, help onboard restaurants as quickly as possible so that they can start earning and so on. And so from product perspective, for example, 7 days post-lockdown, from just start to finish, we launched our first feature out of many that we ended up launching that were specifically COVID catalyzed. And this first one is something that we still remain incredibly proud of today, which is a way for eaters to donate directly to restaurants when they're ordering food on the app. They can add a small amount, whatever they can contribute. And over time, we've actually seen eaters globally donate over $20 million directly to restaurants. And it's all just facilitated by Uber, but 100% of those donations go to restaurants. And Uber has in many cases matched a lot of those donations as well. This was just the beginning. We ended up launching over 20 new features and products in about 4 weeks, working around the clock. And a lot of these features really required innovative solutions because of the scale at which we had to operate. Lockdowns were happening across the globe, and the urgency, obviously, at which we had to operate when restaurants literally, overnight saw their sales go down to zero if they weren't already on a delivery or takeout platform. What we also saw is that connections between restaurants and eaters have just become more salient as a need during this time, because there isn't a ton of social interaction in the real world that could happen anymore. And a lot of this is being mediated through delivery, through technology. And so that is a huge theme that I will touch on later in this talk, because there's a lot of room to innovate and grow there. And I don't think we have all the solutions yet, but we're certainly doing our best to iterate through to that. So the first thing that really happened post-pandemic when the pandemic started, was a huge shift to digital. Many restaurants were already working with Uber Eats or other delivery platforms, but there were many, many more that hadn't yet, that were very focused on their own in-store operations. Those restaurants immediately started signing up for Uber Eats, and from our own perspective, we had to be there and ready to help them. And so thanks to a lot of product work and innovation and technology that we've stood up prior to March 2020, we have been able to accommodate hundreds of thousands of new restaurants globally signing up onto Uber, onboarding themselves, creating their menus, and going online and starting to receive orders as quickly as possible. This is yet another time when the whole company came together. We certainly wanted to make sure that every restaurant that signed up was as soon as possible starting to get more orders through delivery. And the only way that could happen is with technology and operations and just sheer human effort combined. And that's exactly what happened. For several weekends straight in a row, everybody dropped what they were doing and worked with restaurants to get their menus up, walk them step by step through their delivery service on the phone, walk to activate them as a result. The other thing that was really important to us as well is we realized that restaurants, in the shift to digital, we're also starting to pay more attention to their own digital presence. So besides just listing on a platform like Uber Eats, they may have already had a website. A lot of them did not, but some of them did. But they may have only had a static sort of copy of their menu, maybe a phone number, maybe for those who had thought about it, maybe a map and a reservation service. But really what everybody sort of realized they needed was an entirely new way to engage with customers and actually take orders directly through their sites. And so this online ordering product that we launched was conceived in just 4 weeks. When we started hearing from restaurants that they were quickly making the shift to digital and they needed this all-in-one solution. The thing is, Uber Eats already had their menus. Uber Eats already had a robust ordering and payment system, a fraud detection system, a way for them to enter addresses and so on. And then of course, a full delivery system that would have taken even the largest restaurants in the world quite some time to invest and build. And so we thought this was a great way of just serving restaurants. We made this available as quickly as we could. Any restaurant can sign up very easily and just embed a very small piece of code, copy paste into their own website, and all of a sudden open up the power of ordering and taking orders from any customer through their own channel with full-fledged features the same full-fledged features that they have brand as well, but it has all the benefits of being a one-stop shop. As I mentioned before, what's really become important over the pandemic is this concept of connection between restaurants and eaters. Specifically, you may have heard of the phrase digital hospitality, which can sound like a little bit of an oxymoron, right? What does that even mean? And the way I tend to describe it is, how do you essentially recreate digitally the feeling of walking into your favorite restaurant and having the most fantastic meal there, right? So what happens when you walk into your favorite restaurant? You get greeted by a server with a huge smile on their faces. You get seated at your favorite booth. Your favorites are well known to the restaurant and are ready for the taking. The restaurant can usually give you recommendations based on your tastes, and it's such an interactive a way to learn about the restaurant's food. And there's just this attention to detail every step of the way. When you drop a fork, it gets picked up. When you are ready to pay, your bill gets delivered to you instantly, and so on. While there will always be a social and guest experience around food that we will never be able to replicate digitally, and nor are we trying to. That doesn't mean that hospitality should stop, right? We look forward to continuing to find ways to provide this type of feeling, this type of emotional connection between restaurants and eaters within our platform, as well as through technology in general. And so I like to use this story of Justin, whose order from Pato Sushi you see on your screen. Justin's a colleague of ours who tends to order the same 2 sushi rolls in Pato day in and day out. And thanks to a feature that I will discuss a couple of minutes from now, the restaurant found out that he has been such a loyal orderer, essentially, and sent him a quick note with a VVVIP designation. And Justin loves to order cucumbers in his special instructions as part of the sushi roll. Foodie tip, apparently it helps prevent dehydration of the sushi roll while being transported. And usually the company charges him for this, but as a result of sort of learning more about Justin through a feature that we built, has started providing free cucumbers across all of his rolls from then on out as part of their VVVIP designation. And so while it's a seemingly small example, I think these are the types of ways in which technology, restaurants, and eaters can really come together to create something that still feels like an experience. It still feels like a connection, even though it's mediated through delivery and technology. The first step really to creating that connection is honestly being able to know the customer. And so Uber itself has been built on the idea that data is very powerful, and we strive every day to bring that to restaurants. And so aside from just offering the usual maybe sales and operational metrics that many other platforms would, we started building out a full-fledged aggregate customer set of data points, as you can see on the screen here, that really allows restaurants to learn more about who their customers are. Are they new? Are they retaining over time? How many of them are on their second or third order? And what can I do about the increases and drops, right? We also even provide a conversion funnel to the restaurant to be able to show, again, just in the aggregate, no personal information is shared, but to be able to show how many people viewed their store on Uber Eats, how many people of those added an item to the order, and how many people actually ended up placing an order. And so given that, you can't really affect anything that you can't measure, the first step is really measuring things. And we're really proud to be able to provide this data to all restaurants, big and small, for no extra charge today. But of course, data is just the first step, right? It's not enough. We need to help restaurants understand what the data means, and more importantly, what they're able to do about it. Otherwise, then you sort of run into this trap of providing way too much data that's very confusing, especially for restaurants who are just small business owners trying to do the best they can, keeping themselves busy every single day in their kitchen. So what we did was really use the power of data science and machine learning to create peer cohorts of restaurants and be able to sort of draw some comparisons between a particular restaurant with other similar restaurants around them. As well as show them how they're comparing. We also tell them what they can do about the situation, how they can improve. So as an example, you'll see on the left side of your screen, we can say things like, hey, 69% of similar restaurants had more repeat customers than you. You might want to try starting again, completely free loyalty program that we can run to help you get more repeat customers over time. Because if you send them a reward once in a while, there's just a lot of encouragement there to keep them coming back. We also want to make these insights as actionable as possible based on the experimentation that we are able to do on a digital platform that is nearly impossible to do in a brick and mortar store, right? In a brick and mortar store or restaurant, concept of A/B testing is very difficult to do because you're having to maintain this very cohesive experience. There's not a lot of sensors and data that you can use to keep track. But online, all of those constraints are out the window. And so we are constantly running experiments that allow us to understand, for example, how to order items on menus, what kinds of prices work best for particular dishes, which types of customers like certain types of cuisines. And we share all of that with restaurants so that they can, attract more business, attract more customers, over time. So whether it's things like what kinds of combinations work best for Italian restaurants, or the fact that maybe porchetta sandwiches are blowing up in a particular area of the city, and you are an Italian restaurant, and you may want to consider starting a porchetta dish. Those are the types of things we share with merchants nowadays, and again, they're very personalized and very targeted. We also want to allow for the real-time hospitality, real-time connection, surprise and delight moment that we often experience inside a restaurant, right? Back to kind of this theme of creating digital hospitality. Knowing your customer is great, knowing the data is great, knowing what you can do to improve your overall business is definitely important to invest in. But then how do we help restaurants go beyond that? How do we help them really take care of their customers despite being in this digital only environment? So one of the things we did, and this also powers the sort of story I was telling you about with Justin and Pado Sushi earlier, is we added a seemingly small thing. We started adding the number of orders that a certain customer has placed at your restaurant to the Uber Eats tablet that gets distributed to restaurants through which we run orders in real time. And so you can see a version of that on the left side of your screen. What happened and sort of the feedback that we got was really exceeded our expectations. This little badge that showed that Martin has ordered 12 times from your restaurant has now become a catalyst for restaurants to create surprise and delight moments in real time. So for example, on the right side of your screen, you see a can of Hawaiian Sun soda that was sent by a local restaurant owner to David, who has ordered from this particular restaurant 26 times. And they know that because of, again, the badge that we released on the Uber Eats tablet. And David was so thrilled to receive this note. It's nothing crazy, right? It's a can of soda and a lovely little post-it, but it was just so personal. It was, it meant a lot, right, to the restaurant to be able to understand that there are certain customers that they have that are just so loyal and just so supportive of them, especially these days. And so what little they can do, whether it's sending a free can of soda, a lot of times we'll see restaurants send maybe a free cookie or dessert, or even just frankly a personal note thanking them for their support, just means a lot. It means a lot to the eater, it means a lot to the restaurant. We're so glad to be able to facilitate that. And hospitality doesn't really have to stop after the order is placed. It's really important for us to ensure that restaurants and eaters can connect even afterwards, and that the landing sort of sticks at the very end, right? And so we work closely with restaurants to develop a feature that lets them see and respond to eater reviews with a personal message, as well as be able to attach a coupon if they so desired. Again, this type of feature has gotten really excellent feedback across both sides of the marketplace from eaters and restaurants alike. It's just something that, I think is a thoughtful feature, something small that we wanted to implement, certainly not something we expected to really benefit the business, but it didn't really matter to us because it was really more importantly benefiting the customers on both sides. Restaurants felt that they had a measure of control over their guest experience now instead of being mediated through Uber, and eaters were just thrilled to be receiving such personal messages and sometimes even discount coupons from restaurants. The nice thing that we also realized here is that our intuitions about what this would be used for were proven all wrong, right? Our initial intuition was that we would build this product for merchants to be able to say sorry for things that went wrong with an order. We thought it would be a make it right moment, essentially. But what we interestingly found out is that many restaurants were actually using this to say thank you to eaters who were rating them 5 stars, who were sending very complimentary and supportive feedback. And so an example of this is what you see on the right-hand side of your screen. Hyder, who's actually our head of engineering at Uber Eats, enjoys ordering from this particular restaurant, and he had said he loved the food, but he was kind of sad because he wasn't able to order the buns that he usually gets with his food over here. And Greens and Grills immediately responded and said, "Hey, we're sorry about that. Our bread company is reopening. It's been affected by COVID. You will soon be able to get gourmet buns. And by the way, thanks for your patronage. Um, $5 off your next order, just as our way of saying thank you." And this is exactly the sort of interaction we love to see and we hope to see. We're seeing thousands of these every single day. Finally, I think in terms of really catering to eaters who are incredibly loyal, we wanted to be able to close the loop and help restaurants close the loop there. So not just on an order by order basis, but how do you keep this relationship going over time? One of those ways is through just simply creating a loyalty program. Many restaurants do this in real life right now. They have maybe something like a simple digital punch card, all the way up to a very sophisticated program. If you think about the gold standard, things like Starbucks rewards, for example. But most restaurants, let's face it, don't have the resources to do this, don't have the time to think about what rewards should they be giving, how did their unit economics work with these types of rewards, and so on. And so we decided to just build a service, again, completely for free, to give to restaurants, say, hey, if you want to create a loyalty program for all of your Uber Eats customers, you can certainly do that. We'll help you select defaults based on your previous order histories. And it's a 3-step process, 3 clicks of a button, and you're done. And what we've seen is really that eaters have responded so strongly to this, and restaurants have been delighted because there was now a mechanism for them to keep that relationship and keep that business going. Order frequency has gone up. The lifetime value of a customer at their restaurant has gone up as well. And something that as simple as this has been able to power that. Finally, I think I wanted to talk a little bit about how we keep that relationship going, even just beyond your 10 orders or your the kind of the transactional level of getting a delivery order over time. At Uber Eats, we care deeply about creating a platform that is just simply more human and more joyous over time. And all of you who maybe have either worked in the food industry or have friends or family who work in the food industry know that very, very few people come into the food industry to make money. If they wanted to do that, there were many other ways of doing that. They're probably faster and easier and less operationally intensive. People go into this industry for the love of it, for the love of being able to serve really good food, to invent, and to be expressive and creative. They go into it for the ability to serve guests, for the smile that they can bring to eaters' faces, and the happiness that they generally can build through food. So much of food is emotional, it's social, it represents sort of the best of humanity. There's a reason we have all of our major moments built around food. And it would really be a pity, we think, if a lot of that disappeared in this shift to digital. And we are desperate to be able to not lose that touch, right? And so this is just a first baby step in helping to continue that and create that North Star and vision, which is a merchant stories platform. So what you can see on your screen right here is just a series of real life stories posted by restaurants using this feature on our platform. Some, as you might imagine, are promotional. They're ways to talk about a new dish that customers might love or revisit and sort of explain what's behind the dish that is already existing on the menu. But what also surprised us is that many restaurants use this feature to just say thank you and to just send their love to all of their eaters, to anyone who is seeing the message, and especially during these days when it's been an incredibly tough time on everyone, to be able to celebrate resilience, that sort of thing was surprising to us, and it really showed that there is a role that technology can play. There's a role that even food delivery can play in creating that connection. So when we talk about digital hospitality, this is really what we talk about. can't think of any better way to explain it than just show and end on this particular note. And at Uber Eats, we're really committed to continuing to work towards that North Star of us being all together again in the future, hopefully physically, but even if not, even if it's in our homes, showing ways for eaters to show their support to restaurants, but also having restaurants be able to show their love and support for eaters. And we will continue doing that going forward. So with that, I wanted to end on that note. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. And stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Therese. That was so wonderful and informative. I think everything that you share with all those restaurant partners as well, and those insights are key to their success. So very, very interesting to watch today. So thank you. We already have a couple questions here, so we can get started. And please make sure to ask any questions you have in the Q&A box, and we'll try to get through all of them before the end of the hour. My question for you, actually, and there's someone that also asked something similar to my question. Your example of personal notes on a pop can go a long way. I ordered from a local restaurant, and we received notes on every single piece of the menu that we ordered. So from the bag to the packaging to, the sandwich that we ordered. And it was so fun to see that they were having fun with it too. So what is Uber doing right now? And what can they do to really offer that personal touch as we're really, getting towards the digital world and not having that personal touch anymore, when someone could just deliver your food to your door without even opening your door, So what can you share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you, I thoroughly enjoy it when a restaurant goes above and beyond to be incredibly thoughtful about what they put into the bag, because it's just such an expression of delight when I open the bag and see something in there that I wasn't expecting. I think the role Uber and other technology platforms can play is the role of a facilitator and an amplifier to that, right? We're never going to be the best people to decide what to put in the bag, how to delight a customer. That is actually really unique to restaurants and their personalities. Some prefer to send handwritten notes. Some prefer to, connect over social media. Some, I think, are very much into, sending free samples of their desserts. Sweets are apparently a lifeline for all of us during the pandemic. And so I've seen all sorts of different personal touches that go into it. But what we can do is just make it easier, right? So I have walked into restaurants before where they basically have, unfortunately, just this tiny space in their kitchen that has a bunch of Post-it notes. And I walked in closer and I've sort of said, why do you have so many Post-it notes here? And it turns out it was like, Chantal loves cheese and extra cheese on her burger. Make sure to always put that there. Or, Justin usually orders cucumber rolls, make sure to put that there. Or this person has come in 12 times already. Please, at the end of the next time this person comes in, give that person a free drink. And there's really no reason why all of these have to be kind of marked up in a bunch of random Post-its on a very small part of their kitchen. We can help with that. We can help restaurants keep track of who their loyal customers are. We can help them more easily add rewards that the restaurants love, the eaters love. We can more easily give them data to show what maybe a user might enjoy, or even just the fact that the user is someone who loves them already. So, look for us to continue doubling down on that facilitation and amplification role.
That's great. And to that point, the other question that was similar was, what are some ways that Uber and restaurants have been adding hospitality within the delivery user experience?
Yeah, definitely. It's something we think about a lot every day as well, because, the restaurant can only do so much, and they are not the only person in this whole equation. I think it's honestly become a lot more difficult now because of the sort of that necessity of social distancing. And, in the past, there was at least some interaction between delivery people and the person they were delivering to, and that has had to be necessarily more limited. But I think, we obviously have, for example, in-app chats between sort of delivery people and delivery users, and that's really used more sometimes not just to coordinate, where to drop off food, but also to just make sure that the eater was getting everything they needed. Like I've certainly had delivery people from Uber call me up directly or chat with me directly and say, hey, I just want to make sure that the restaurant is still taking a while to prepare your food. I'm here, I'm ready to deliver, but I'm still waiting for the food to come out. And so those little touches of thoughtfulness I do find are really quite helpful, because it's not like I know and can keep track of every single part of the process of where my food is. And so the more that a delivery person can help set expectations, when they don't have to, by the way, nobody's forcing them to do this, but we tend to encourage and celebrate that sort of connection. And by the way, also the connection between delivery people and eaters. So delivery people all have profiles inside the app. You can pay them a compliment. Honestly, the best way to help delivery people throughout this whole situation is to tip, and tip well, right? They're delivering your food for you sometimes through heavy snow and heavy rain, and the least I think we can all do as eaters is say thank you for their service in that way.
I think that's so important, and it's fair. All right, they've gone through a lot of hoops to get our food in our hands. So that's such a great tip. And then now, from personal to digital, how did Uber help upskill restaurants as they quickly jumped into the digital space? How can restaurants win when it comes to digital user experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that I guess there are two ways to answer this question. The first thing in terms of helping upscale restaurants is just by having a platform that they can jump on in minutes or hours, right? Typically without this kind of marketplace or platform you can list on, you would have to figure out how to create your own website. You would have to figure out how to take orders. If you're lucky, you would be able to hire a web developer, but even that costs a lot of money, where every cent counts right now. And so just having the technology for a restaurant to say, okay, and by the way, it's not just restaurants. The other trend that I've been seeing a lot is, a lot of chefs turning to pop-up sort of independent business, what we call micro businesses, cooking out of, a lot of bakers cooking out of their own ovens and kitchens were permissible by regulations, and just experimenting with amazing desserts and amazing cookies and breads. What about them, right? Like it's not like they have the backing of a restaurant fund or anything to be able to sell those goods. And so being able to support them is something we're really proud of, because they can come onto our platform, list on our platform in a matter of minutes or hours, and start receiving orders. And the other way I'd say is what we've helped is in the enabling them with their own presence as well. And so that can take the form of giving them actual technology to power their own website, their own orders, and both, by the way, on PC as well as on mobile, where a lot more people are ordering nowadays. We have also given, I didn't talk about this in my presentation, but it's a good point to bring up, which is we have actually also allowed, or given restaurants ways to allow for contactless dining and ordering and payment inside, the restaurant itself, for those that are still doing either indoor or outdoor dining. Obviously, a lot of customers do not want to touch physical menus anymore, or anything like that. And so, their menus are already on Uber Eats. There's already a payment platform on Uber Eats. So why not just keep it simple, make it available? It doesn't have to be for delivery. You can just eat out and still have that same convenient experience. So, and finally, the last thing I'll say is, the data point is really hard to overemphasize here. The way restaurants are going to succeed digitally is if they understand who their digital customer is, and it is not always the same as their brick and mortar customer, or even if it is the same person, their delivery habits are just going to be very different. Types of food that they would order would be different. We tend to see higher basket sizes when it comes to delivery, because if you're ordering something, you may as well order for a group or more food for yourself, right? So I personally do this. I'd order dinner and then lunch and then dinner for tomorrow, and just have it all be bundled into one.
Same
and so
here.
knowing,
Yeah.
exactly, right? So knowing those trends, and for us to be able to facilitate things like, hey, here's data on combinations, useful combinations that you might want to offer on your menu. We found that restaurants really love that kind of setup and data.
That's so great. So here's another question. How does Uber Eats differentiate itself from the many food delivery competitors in the Canadian landscape?
Yeah, definitely. I know there's a very strong competition in the Canadian landscape, and frankly, across all of our different the countries we serve as well. And what I think, and I hope at least it differentiates ourselves, so it's up to all of you who are customers of Uber Eats to really judge us, is we are a delivery company, but that's our route, but that's not really where we're headed, right? In fact, my team's mission is to be the only partner a restaurant ever needs, and you'll notice the word delivery is not even in that mission statement at all. And that's because delivery is just the beginning for us. And what we know is that restaurants have so many needs, and technology can fulfill some of them, so many of them, that what we know. So why wouldn't we try to do that? I'll point out a couple of other things. One is our emphasis on this merchant to eater connection, or restaurant to eater connection, and this idea of digital hospitality is just something that I think is actually really best in class, and something that not a lot of our competitors provide. And I think frankly it's because there's not a lot of money to be made in that very short term, right? These are all services we offer for free to restaurants, to eaters. We believe in it long term. We believe it's great for business long term, but we also believe in general that it's just great for this whole ecosystem long term, and that's why we invest in it. The amount of data we share with merchants is something that enables them to provide better service to their eaters, is something that's quite unique as well to us. And finally, the fact that we are really strong in terms of personalization. We know we invest a lot in machine learning to understand the food that eaters order, so that we can give them better recommendations over time. We can give them better understanding of their food over time. We can show them calorie information, nutritional information, and so on over time, help them eat healthy if that's what they would like to do. I always tell people, especially those who may not understand, hey, personalizing food is very different from personalizing movies, right? Netflix can do this really easily because, well, it's not easy. I will say they've been at it for 10 years and they're best in class. But, if you like horror movies, chances are tomorrow you'll want to watch another horror movie. That's very much a genre specific thing. And it's something that people tend to be consistent about. With food, if I ate a pad thai today, there's no way I am likely to want to eat a pad thai tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that as well. There's a lot of variation. So that's actually a really difficult problem to solve, but something we're very committed to solving.
Wow, amazing. So what new feature was the best received from consumers, best received from restaurants too? Which ones did you say were?
Oh, that's a really interesting one. I'll talk about, you'll notice that I tend to talk about small features because I think they're actually the ones that are really powerful, as opposed to, some of the bigger overhauls. So I'll give you a couple on the consumer side. The big overhaul we did of our consumer app, and hopefully everybody has seen this, is just much cleaner, much easier interface. Where you're able to get to the food that you want, that you need very quickly, and check out very quickly. We've added a couple of sort of delightful moments in that. The first one is a little moving carousel of graphics and imagery that move across time, that show you in real time what other people in your neighborhood are ordering. It's a little bit of just like, hey, I just want to know what's happening, what's trendy. It actually serves as really useful inspiration if you don't really know what to order. You're just kind of browsing and seeing what's popular. That one has been incredibly well received for such a tiny little feature, because people are like, oh, I didn't realize that this local Greek place is serving this kebab now. Now everybody seems to be ordering it right this minute. Maybe I should try that too. The other thing that we did on the consumer side that I find was incredibly thoughtful is we've sort of improved a lot of the ways in which we tell people about the circumstances of their delivery, even incorporating things like weather reports into it to create more empathy for delivery people. And so, especially during times of bad weather, we will actually actively have a little map that's raining with a courier with an umbrella in the imagery, and sort of say, hey, like, you should just know that your courier, your delivery person is going through a lot right now. You may want to just say thank you in many ways, financially or otherwise, right? So those are the things that I really do enjoy. And on the restaurant side, it's honestly hard to pick a little darling of mine. Everything that I've talked about in this presentation is something I'm incredibly proud of, and has been very well received by restaurants.
It's so great. It's so important to show the weather. I think that's a fun little feature that really helps add that little personal element to your driver or your delivery guy or girl, and to have that empathy for them and to be a little patient is so important, right?
Yeah.
So here's another great question. What, and maybe a bit more personal, what are your go-to restaurants in the city? And is there a restaurant we don't have in Toronto that you hope will pop up soon?
That's a really great question. So, I can certainly talk about my favorite restaurants in New York, which is where I live right now. But, I'll talk about a couple of interesting and thoughtful restaurants I've encountered. I think one is in my travels as well, not just in New York, but like one is actually a local Japanese restaurant that specializes in ramen. And I love ramen. I order a lot of ramen from all different types of ramen shops, but this one in particular, their name is Tomi Jazz, I believe. They're exquisite in how they package their delivery ramen. First of all, it almost looks like an ikebana sculpture of some sort, where it's like the largest containers are packaged at the bottom all the way going to the top, and the soup is at the base, the noodles are next, and they're all separate because they obviously cared about the fact that like you shouldn't really be having all these ingredients sloshing around while in transit. And they print out this like wonderful set of beautifully laid out instructions for the assembly of this. And at the very top is this tiny Tupperware that has a bunch of micro vegetables, a little bit of fish roe, and their soft-boiled egg, artfully arranged as if it was served in a restaurant.
Wow.
It's crazy. And so being able to assemble all of that, like literally, I basically had a restaurant quality meal right in front of me that I was able to literally assemble in 3 minutes. And just the thoughtfulness of that, and the fact that they say thank you in their note, and they tell you a bit more about their ramen, I find just utterly delightful. I'll give another example. This is not in New York, but there is a restaurant we've encountered on our travels that they're a burger place, but they're a little bit of a fancier burger place. And off the bat, you can't really tell, but what they actually have is a burger container that has the burger inside. And at the very bottom, you'll actually see sort of a little bamboo basket with hot stones in them, like you would see in like a spa. And so you have this burger that's being kept warm by these hot stones throughout the entire transit journey. And when you open it up, it's just this beautiful, delightful experience. And again, not just because it's pretty, because you can tell the restaurant thought so deeply about like how to make sure this burger survives, not just survives, but thrives in this delivery environment. So those are a couple of my favorite anecdotes.
I find packaging so interesting and important. And, I ordered sushi last month, and it came in a wooden box that you can keep, right? So when you think of packaging in general and how beautiful it could be presented, even when it is delivered to your home, this is a question for me. What are the conversations with these businesses about sustainability, and maybe, providing some key elements that people could keep instead of throwing away or recycle?
Yeah, it's definitely something we pay close attention to and are sincere advocates for. We have a very specific feature, for example, on our Uber Eats app that allows you to request utensils. And by default, we'll actually turn that off because, I've certainly fallen victim to like thousands of plastic spoons just sitting in my shelf, and I don't use them because I have cutlery here that I can use anyway. And so we actually default to not offering the utensils unless a customer wants it. And I think that small thing has really just contributed a lot if you think about how much delivery is done over time. We are in active conversations with restaurants constantly about best practices that we've seen from other restaurants and so on. But the encouraging piece here is that restaurants themselves are paying attention to sustainability more generally, whether that's in their packaging, but also in just their ingredients, right? There's like a trend towards healthy and plant-based foods and all of that. And we're constantly working with them on ways to highlight them, to kind of not just show them as part of the menu, but also help change consumer behavior and nudge them. I'm a big believer, I'm an economist by training, big believer in behavioral economics and the little nudges you can do. Even where you place the plant-based item in your menu can make a big difference in the willingness of a customer to consider that item. And so we continue to experiment on those types of things.
And we started seeing that, small steps with the plastic straws, for example, and as soon as a few people do it, then that really started to change the game across the board, and that can go a very long way.
Many restaurants also are providing a lot of, reusable packaging and incentivizing that, right? Hey, like we are going to give you a free salad bowl. If you come in and use the same salad bowl next time in your pickup order or your dine-in order, you'll get like $2 or $3 off your salad, and it's wonderful.
That's great. So we have enough time for one more question here. So as Uber Eats are growing and having more categories of products available for customers, how does Uber Eats ensure the mobile first app doesn't become too overwhelming on the mobile side experience? And are there any plans to spin off to another sub app, for example? Or will Uber Eats cater to folks who are loyal for simplicity and minimalism?
Yeah, it's a great question. This person clearly has thought very deeply about products. I really appreciate the question. We can certainly geek out afterwards, but it's a great question. I think what we really believe in is Uber Eats' ability to serve all sorts of needs beyond just restaurant food, right? And so you are seeing us start to invest in grocery, sort of food adjacent verticals, convenience stores, liquor stores and things like that. And we'll continue to do that. I think overall, it's a personal pet peeve of mine as a customer. I generally love cocktails, for example, and I love to have cheese and salami and sort of a cheese platter in the cocktails. It drives me nuts that I have to go to like 5 different apps to just assemble my my spread for the evening.
You're right.
One app for the fresh fruit, one app for the cheese platter from a restaurant, one app for the wine or the cocktail I'm planning to serve, another app for the limes. It's a little bit crazy, right? And so why can't Uber Eats or any other platform really just offer that one-stop shop? And I think that's what we want to get to. I think there will always be a point to sub apps or specific apps that are very specialized for power users. I don't think that's going to change as a consumer trend, and so we will look carefully at strategies like that. But at the end of the day, if you can solve my cocktail problem for me in any other way, please, I would love to hear it. But we believe that a single strong app is certainly a great foundation to start from.
We have a few local options with some partners here, so we should chat after this. Well, this takes us to the very end of our hour today. This was so informative, Therese. Thank you so much. Thank you for such an amazing hour. And thank you for everyone for joining us. And thank you to Uber Eats. Please make sure to stay tuned and tune into all our other upcoming events we have down the pipe for the next month for you. So next is our Pancakes Are Forever cooking masterclass with Chef Donna Dewar, owner of Mildred's Temple Kitchen, followed by a fireside chat on empire building with Janet Zuccarini, owner and CEO of Gusto 54 Group, and future of catering with our chef and caterer in residence, Chef Lauren Moser. So thank you, everyone, again. Thank you, Therese. Have a great long weekend. And please stay safe, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.